Pickle, let's go to the hotline, and let's bring in the co-host of High School Scoreboard Live on Fox Sports Southwest. He is on The Horn in Austin with Jeff Howe on Light the Tower every morning, and he is the play-by-play voice of the Texas Longhorns. We're joined by Craig Way. And Craig, I guess my first question for you, and it's similar to the first question I had for you last year, is did you surround your house with flame retardant so that as the city of Austin burns after Saturday's game, you and yours will be safe?
I think no amount of asbestos and fire-retardant material may be able to stop the raging inferno that has engulfed the greater Austin area. I speak in grand hyperbole, of course, but there's a lot of people that are upset about it. And really, Cap, on a serious note, it's gone beyond the pale of what's going on with the football team and the list. The other major, and it has become a major issue down here, is the Eyes of Texas. And when people are tweeting out photos of Sam Ehlinger being the only one, even though he wasn't the only one, there were a couple other players standing there as well, standing for the Eyes of Texas, where others who went into the locker room because they had been told by university administration back in the summer, after they had that petition of lots of different issues, that they would not be required to stand there. That has inflamed another entire group. So you've got that debate going on back and forth, what is right, what is wrong, can they do it, should they do it, all of those kinds of things. You got that. And some, I would say, have taken also to wrapping it up, encasing it inside the struggles of the football team as well. I think the two are completely separate issues, but there are folks that are lumping the two together right now.
Saturday was your 30th Texas OU game there with the Longhorn radio broadcast. Your 30th Texas OU game, a quadruple overtime thriller, in which it goes back and forth, a wild comeback. Of the 30, obviously, from your perspective, you would have preferred that the score had been reversed. But as far as a game is concerned, where does that one rank among your 30 Red River games?
You make it in terms of its unique and extemporaneous quality?
That's a great way to put
it. Maybe number one. It was that nutty. It's that great. Of all the games that I've done, Tep, both at high school and college, I've never called a 4 overtime game before. I've had a couple of triple overtimes at the high school level, and some double overtime games for Texas, but never a quadruple overtime. And the fact that it got there because of the heroics of Sam Ehlinger in the final 5 minutes, which, by the way, doesn't completely erase, and he's the first to tell you that, some of the difficulties he struggled with earlier in the game, but he did rally the troops and got them to that game, to the overtime sessions, and then it just went back and forth. I mean, it was sheer nuts and craziness. And here's the other thing. You and I have never really had a great deal, I would say, difficulty of talking for long periods of time. We're kind of built that way, right?
It's a nice way to put it.
We can kind of do that. Yeah. So we've kind of been built that way to where we could do that. In the case of that, we ran out of in-game commercial breaks on our radio network broadcast right before the end of regulation. So yours truly, along with Roger Wallace and Quan Cosby, went a solid 1 hour and 15 minutes without any kind of a break.
Wow.
From near the end of regulation to the end of overtime number 4. So that just added to all the nuttiness of what happened on Saturday.
Well, I will just tell you that I'm reading a text message here from my mother that I received at 3:40 p.m. on Saturday. She said, quote, "I keep thinking about Craig Way. He has to be exhausted." So don't worry, the Tepper family, at least some parts of the Tepper family, I didn't really care, but it's some parts of the Tepper family did have your best interest at heart.
Well, I appreciate that, and she's I would say in large measure correct. I was pretty wiped out when it was over, but it was a lot of fun as a broadcaster to call. Now, obviously, coming from the constituency that I represent, you would, they were certainly hoping for Texas to prevail. But in terms of just the football game itself, and I've heard this said a lot over the past, 72 hours since the game, that if you didn't have a dog in the fight, it was a lot of fun to behold or to listen to.
Wasn't the only the second time that rivalry has gone into overtime? Any overtimes?
Yeah, Pickle, and and the first time, here's how bizarre it was. The first time it happened was the very first year of overtime, 1996.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why I know that it was the first year of overtime is because the prior year they played to a 24-24 tie, the last year of the ties. And so they had a tie in 95, and then in 96 they tied. In the overtime rule was so new that folks had not figured out that if you win the toss, you're better suited to play defense first. The Longhorns actually won the toss for that overtime back in 96, took the ball, couldn't get it in the end zone, settled for a Phil Dawson field goal, and then Oklahoma won it on the James Allen touchdown run there on the overtime. The Longhorns' problems with the overtime weren't calling the toss wrong. I think they haven't won a coin toss this year. Maybe the first game of the year. They haven't won one since. I know they didn't win it in Lubbock. I know they didn't win the coin toss for TCU, and they didn't win either coin toss, either before the game or the start of overtime against Oklahoma. It's been that kind of year, a 2020 wrinkle, if you will.
We're talking with Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at #TF Today. All right, Craig, I do want to matriculate over to the high school ranks and ask you about the upcoming week with Week 8. And we've already had a couple of high-profile games canceled, most notably South Lake Carroll and Guyer, which is a bummer. But the one thing, and I want to go down to your neck of the woods, because I think there's a game that's flying under people's radar that has a chance to steal the show and be the game of the weekend. I'm talking about Cedar Park, Vista Ridge, and Austin Vandegrift. I think this game has a chance to be, you're talking about a critical district showdown there in District 25 6A. I think this has a chance to really steal the show on Friday night. I'm curious if you agree.
Yeah, I agree with you. And toward the end, and you know this from being on the inside on the email chain, once we learned that Carroll and Guyer had been called off, I typed it immediately and to the powers that be and said, listen, I know we had Lauren Blackwell assigned to cover that game for us and to do all the live look-ins there for you guys on Football Friday and then do the recap for Scoreboard Live. I said, this would be a more than ample substitute. And there were other choices. Wall, Jim Dad, I think, would have been a reasonable choice as well. But I offered that up there since we were talking about it from a 6A perspective, and as we were with Carroll and Guyer. And the powers that be up there agreed with that. So Lauren's going to be down at Gupton Stadium on Friday night. I agree with you. Vista Ridge hasn't beaten Vandegrift in 5 years. The last time they beat them was 2015, and that was that crazy year where they played twice when they were both what would now be 5A programs. Back then it was still 4A. It was the last year of, well, quote-unquote 4A. But they were 5A programs, if I remember. They were. Actually, it was the first year, so they weren't 5As. But the thing that happened was they were district mates at one level classification down at the 5A level. They played in the regular season. Vandegrift won, I think, 63-49 in the regular season meeting. Then they met up again in the quarterfinals, and Vista Ridge won 24-17 and went on to the state semifinals. They lost to George Ranch, the eventual state champion. But you had that. You had all that drama. They met twice. And, oh, by the way, I know this as a parent of kids who went to Vista Ridge. They don't like each other. Schools are there's some I don't know how nasty it gets, but there's some rivalry there between the two schools, and they came in around the same time. So you have all of that and a rivalry game, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. That Vista Ridge offense against the Vandegrift defense is the key matchup, I think, come Friday night.
Finally, Craig, viewers of High School Scoreboard Live might have noticed on Friday night that we were without our partner in crime. We were without our buddy Rick Renner, who was out for the evening. I think partying or something. But my question for you, you have been doing that show with Rick for, I don't even want to try to put a number on it. Was that an odd experience for you to not have the Renner safety blanket?
I've never heard of Rick described as a safety blanket. I've heard people say you need a safety blanket from Renner, but no, it was different, you know. And I've been in one form or another. I've been doing that show since 1996, with the exception of 3 years, 2001 through 03, I think it was. But I did it solo for a couple of years. Randy McElvoy and I did it. Dana Larson and I did it. Emily Jones and I did it, I think, and then Rick. So but I've been with Rick longer than any of the others. So while it was a little bit different, you're obviously one of, you know, our Three Amigos group. The better question is, did it seem weird to you coming off of Tep's corner over there, down there in the corner where you've been there at your desk, and sliding there along the desk alongside? That's the bigger question. How weird was it for you sitting there, you know, socially distanced from me when we're throwing down all those highlights last Friday?
If you remember when you were a kid, the first Thanksgiving you got to eat at the adult table, that's really what it felt like. I got promoted from the kids table up to the big.
I got you.
Table. So I got to.
It was fun.
It was
fun. I enjoyed it.
Y'all did well. It looked smooth.
That's kind of, yeah. He is Craig Way. He's a Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. You can hear him on The Horn in Austin every morning with Jeff Howe, and you can see his fine work on High School Scoreboard Live coming up Friday at 11 o'clock p.m. Craig, appreciate your time, and maybe this week with a bye week, we can get you talking a little bit less. We can rest your voice just a little bit.
I think I'll be ready to roll. I think I'm okay. So I think I'll be good to go for sure on Friday. So we'll look forward to seeing you in whatever capacity you happen to be filling on Friday.
We'll find out together. Later, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
You bet.
There you go.
Bye.
Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, joins us every Tuesday here on Texas Football Today.